First, a word of disclaimer. Today's talk is not going to be anything resembling politically correct. It is going to be, we're going to talk about things and say things which to a great number of people are monumentally offensive. I'm not concerned with that. The reason I'm not concerned with that is because truth has nothing to do with how you feel about it. So if there are intellectual reasons why this isn't good, that's fine. I'm happy to take it and throw it in the garbage can. But if the reason that we don't like something is because of the way that it makes us feel, I would say that we need to probably see an excellent therapist to dispel ourselves of the myth and the notion that the way that you feel about something actually has anything to do and influences with reality. It doesn't. It has no influence on reality whatsoever. And we hope that your phone is waterproof. Okay, so I just got back from what was an incredible Israel trip. It was, there's no words, there's really no words. The camaraderie, the feelings, it was meaningful, it was emotional. I haven't wept so much in years. Honestly, I have not cried like that since my grandfather died. It was very powerful. It was a really powerful trip. And especially because we were able to be there for Yom HaZikaron and for Yom HaAtzmaut, which is Israeli Memorial Day and Israeli Independence Day. Nothing to do with what Americans think of when they think Memorial Day or Independence Day. It's something completely different than that. It's a lot deeper. Not to say that there's anything wrong with American Memorial Day or Independence Day. It's just celebrated in a very different way culturally by the Israelis than it is by the gringos. I suggest you all look and see the difference because it's moving and it's meaningful and it's cool also just in general to see the difference between how cultures do something. But with all that, being there and living through and experiencing these ceremonies and these days from the skin of the Israeli people, so to speak, I was worried. I was worried. And I'm going to share why I was worried with you. I'll tell you what worries me. We're going to discuss Yom HaAtzmaut through 2 or 3 different lenses. I want to look at it through the lens of secular Israelis. I want to look at it through the lens of ultra-Orthodox, otherwise known as Haredi Israelis. And I want to look at it through the lens of Western leftists in general. That's what I would like to do. So to begin, we are literally going to begin at the very beginning of Genesis of the Torah. If you open it up to page 1, you will find one of the most disturbing Rashis that you will find anywhere in the Torah, because it makes no sense. I mean, we're going to read this Rashi together, and you're going to be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So the first verse in the Torah is what? Does anybody know what the very first pasuk, the very first line in the Torah is? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, and I quote from the art school, in the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth. Okay, now, Rashi says as follows, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. He quotes a man named Rabbi Yitzchak. Lo hayitzarech lahaskelas haTorah el me'achodesh hazeh lachem, shehi mitzvah rishona shenestavu ba Yisrael. I don't understand. Why are you starting the Torah from in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth? The Torah is a law book. Why don't you begin with the first mitzvah in the Torah, which is actually in Exodus? Not in the portion of Exodus, but in the book of Exodus, in the portion of Va'era. Bo. Excuse me, it's in Bo. So start midway through Exodus. Why are you starting in Genesis? It's a law book. Start with, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Start with, this is the first month for you. It's a little strange that you start with this whole, cosmology thing. It's very odd. That's Rabbi Yitzchak's question. Umatam pasach b'Bereishis. So why, indeed, did God begin the Torah with Bereshis, in the beginning? Well, Mishum koach ma'asav yigid la'amo l'seisem nachlas goyim she'im yomru umos ha'olam liYisrael. Because you see, if the nations of the world are to come to the Jews and say to them, Listimatem, you're thieves, shekavashtem artzot shiv'a goyim, because you conquered the lands of the 7 nations. Heim omrim lahem. So then the Jews will reply to the nations who are calling them thieves. Well, after all, it says in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning God created Kol haaretz shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, all the land belongs to God, because after all, He made it. Like if I make a sandcastle, whose sandcastle is it? Sprung's sandcastle. This earth is God's sandcastle because He made it. Hu bara'ah, He created it. V'natna l'asher yashar beinav, and gave it to whomever he liked. B'ritzono natna lahem. So in his will, he gave it to them, to those 7 nations. U'v'ritzono natna mihem v'natna lanu, and also by his will, he took it from them and gave it to us. This is great. This is great. Rashi actually says this. If you don't believe me, I implore you, look it up. Here's the book. Here's the book. I'm really not making it up, but if you don't trust me, and it's good, you should never trust a teacher, go look it up yourselves. That's what Rashi says. Now there are several obvious problems with this. Obvious problems. The most glaring problem that every yeshiva boy who has ever read this has thought, why would that be a compelling point to people who don't have the Torah? And it's like, can you imagine if some guy comes up to you and like kicks you in the shin and you're like, oh, why did you do that? And he says, oh, because I read in the book of Hiawatha that I should kick you in the shin. Yeah, but I don't accept the book of Hiawatha. So like, it's not a good point. It's really, really a very poor point. So when people come to you and they say, hey, you stole this land, you guys are thieves. You say to them, well, it says in the Torah that God gave it to me. But he doesn't accept the Torah. The same way you don't accept the Quran. So how is that a compelling point? It's a very silly thing to say. This is the very first Rashi in the Torah. The very first Rashi. Furthermore, there are other problems with this Rashi. You're telling me that we should reply, well, because, God created the whole world and he first gave it to them, then took it from them and gave it to us. You understand that logic would apply to absolutely any totalitarian regime, right? All they have to do is, Japan can invade China in World War II, decimate the Chinese military, establish Japanese rule over all of China, and when China says, hey, how come you came and did this to us? Well, the world belongs to God and he took it from you and gave it to me. It's the same point. I don't see a differentiation there. It's always better when it's your point, right? But when the other guy uses it, you don't like the point that much. It's very strange. I'd like to ask another question, which is perhaps a little bit more subtle, but not that much more subtle. The original question of Rashi was what? Who remembers what the original question of Rashi was? Not a trick question. What did he ask? Not all at once.
If it's a law book, why start with creation?
Thank you. Why start from creation? Tell me the first law. And he answers, well, because if the nations come to you and say that you're thieves for stealing Israel, wait a minute, I'm sorry, you're telling me that the reason that the entire Torah begins with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, is because people might come and say that you stole Israel? Like that's why the whole Genesis is for that point? Couldn't you have made the point far easier when God comes to Abraham and says, hey, I'm giving you the land? Which he does, right? God comes to Abraham and says, I'm giving you this land for you and your children. And then he does it again by Isaac. He comes to Isaac and says, I'm giving you this land for you and your children. And he comes again for Jacob and says, Yaakov, I'm giving you this land for you and your children. Couldn't you have learned exactly the same lesson there? It seems like a really strange thing to me to put this all the way in the beginning of the Torah. Like everything is coming from this. It's a strange thing to kind of talk about. That's the third problem that I see in this point with Rashi. And then the fourth issue, which is not really a problem, it's just an issue, is you understand this presupposes the proverbial Jewish elephant in the room. Jews are obsessed with everyone's being obsessed over them. Ask a Jew, he sees something in the news, anti-Semitism, right? That's the only word Jews know. Anti-Semitism. You know why that happened? Anti-Semitism. Everything's bad, right? So this is Rashi. He's living 1,000 years ago in France. 1,000 years ago in France, he's writing, you know why the Torah begins with Bereshis? Because those nations, they're going to come to you. What, all the nations care? You think the nations have nothing better to do? By the way, when I say the nations, you understand this can refer to the entirety of nations. Jews are a very, very minuscule percentage of the earth. You're telling me that all of the people right now in India, all of the people, the 1 billion people of India, when they're in the market, they're walking down the market thinking, damn, Jews stole Israel from the Canaanites. Really? Really? I said, come on. That's crazy talk. That's crazy. So it's really strange. I'm going to answer this for you. Oh, yes, I will. Now, that's the first point. The second point that I would like to make and this is a little bit more painful. What's the point of Israel? Like I sat there, and you can vouch for me because you were there. I sat there, Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, and one after the other, the politicians are getting up. And these are like important politicians because we were a big delegation. We're getting like, the big dudes. And they're coming down there saying, well, without Israel, there is no protection for Jews in the world. Israel is not just for us in the Israeli, it is for you in the United States. בגלל if you get in trouble, we will come help you. And everyone's like, yeah! It was really nice. It was really nice. But of course, I'm twisted. So I'm thinking something else. I'm thinking, so you're telling me that the reason that Israel has to exist is to protect Jews. It's a very important reason. It was the reason that Theodor Herzl based his entire life around. He was inspired by the Dreyfus trial. For him, it was all about, oh no, Jews need a land because they're killing us everywhere else. Okay, so if everyone stops killing us, what do we not need? Israel. You're telling me we don't really need Israel. We just need to be protected. And so far, the best way that we've found to protect ourselves is by having a nation state. But take that away, if people weren't, pogroming us every Monday and Thursday, then frankly, we're quite comfortable in Brooklyn. And we could do very well even in Europe if they would, stop with the knives and the rammings and the bombs, and we'd be fine. Israel's not important on its own. It's not important Israel qua Israel. Israel's important because we need a bodyguard. That's the only reason that it's important.
Well, if that were the case, we could take Uganda.
Oh, and that comes to the next point. See, by the way, you should know, I don't need to ever talk to you. You can have Anita do it. And she would be right. I think I was going to say right 100% of the time, but we would agree 98% of the time.
No way.
Yes, this is why Herzl was fine with Uganda. This is why he was fine with Uganda. I don't need Israel. I just need a place with really high walls so the dinosaurs can't get in.
But it goes back to your Pesach shiur that Hashem told Abraham that this is the land that I'm giving.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're going there. But I want to go step by step and see how we evolve this. So, why not take Uganda? Now, even to Israeli ostensibly advocates of Israel. For example, J Street. If you look on J Street's website, it's a very, very wonderful website. I suggest you look it up. They say that, it's fair. It's only fair that the Jews have a state and the Palestinians have a state. And therefore, we should go back to pre-1967 borders with mutually agreed upon land swaps. This is J Street's position. It's very practical. It's very fair. It's wonderful, other than one point. It's completely unfair. And they should be ashamed of themselves. You're telling me that the Jews should get a state in pre-1967 borders? Why? Why? That's Palestinian land from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. J Street is looking you in the eye and saying, listen, it's okay for the Jews to steal land from the Palestinians. Just not a lot of land. You can't steal all the land from the Palestinians. You can steal a little bit from the Palestinians. Pre-1967 borders, that we're okay with you stealing. That's okay. But post-1967 borders, that's stealing too much. Excuse me. Thieves! You stole the land. You don't get to determine, it's fair for us to have a state and them to have a state. Really? That's like someone walking into your house. He sticks his flag in your living room and he says, okay, this side of your house is for me and that side of your house is for you. And you say, but buddy, this is my whole house. No, that's not fair. I also need a house. And I don't have a house, so I'm going to take half of your house. It's fair, yes? Half for me, half for you. No, we have a word for that. We call that stealing. You're not allowed to do that in most countries. In some countries, you're allowed to do that. Why is that okay? So seriously, I don't understand why J Street allows Israel to be such thieves. I really don't. AIPAC, you could say, okay, but they want to steal the whole thing, so at least they're consistent. But very odd to me. Let me ask you also just one more question. If the Jews were to say to the Arabs, you know there are like, 22 Arab countries and 55 Muslim countries? And by the way, when we say countries, we don't mean that they're equivalent in any way, shape, or form to the size of Israel. Most of them are hundreds of times larger. If you were to say to the Arab bloc in the United Nations, look, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Give us land that's 10 times the size of the state of Israel, somewhere in the Middle East, and y'all take Israel. You don't think they'd be amenable to that? It's a great deal for us, right? We like land value, great real estate. And we'll take our army. We can even have our mighty Israeli army, mighty IDF. We can pick them up and we can move them to the middle point of Saudi Arabia and live there and then give the whole thing Israel over there. And then everything's great for J Street. Everything's great for Herzl. Because we're totally protected. By the way, other than the fact that we're protected and we make money on the real estate deal, because we get 10 times the land and everybody's happy with us, you understand that half of the reason we need protection is because Israel is where it is. Right? If you were to pick Israel up and put it in the middle of Africa, you put it somewhere else, nobody cares. I'm sure we'd have trouble with whomever we were over there too, but it's easier, right? You're gonna take away the whole reason why apparently everybody is killing Jews all over the world nowadays, right? They're only killing us because of, the occupation. It's the occupation. The reason that I stabbed your grandmother in the neck at a cafe is because the occupation. It's very reasonable. So all you have to do is stop, the occupation, and I'll stop stabbing you. We'll all get along just great. It's going to be wonderful. So I don't understand these cockamamie Jews. They're crazy. They have to be over there where nobody wants them. Let them make a good deal. They're all about good deals, right? Them and President Trump, all about great deals. Make a great deal, move somewhere else, Shalom al Yisrael, all we have is peace. Everything's wonderful. Who loses? Oh, but the holy sites. Go visit the holy sites. Go visit the holy sites. You don't need to live in Saudi Arabia to go to Mecca on the Hajj. Go visit Jerusalem. The same way I live here in Miami, Florida. It's very wonderful here. I have a pool. Everything is gegezut and stark. It's so wonderful. I want to go to Israel for Yontif. Great. Go to Israel for Yontif. It'll be under the wonderful Palestinian flag. Everything's great. And you go to Israel for Yontif. They're not going to be killing you anymore because they own it. So everything will be fine. What's the problem? What's the problem with this? Anyway, like I said before, what I'm going to tell you is offensive. Sorry. I think this also has a lot to do with the reason that many American Jews are wavering in their support of Israel. And by the way, wavering is a very generous word. There are many college campuses all around the country, and I lived on a college campus for a long time as a rabbi. So I've seen this, and it's gotten much, much worse since those days. That was like eons ago. There are plenty of Jews on college campuses that don't support Israel at all. They don't support Israel at all. To them, Natalie Portman is a big Zionist. And I'd like to explain why. They're totally right. They're totally right. Depending upon what you believe. Let's go back to the first Rashi. Let's go back to the first Rashi that everybody reads and no one understands. Rashi says, why does the Torah begin with Genesis? Well, because if all the nations will come to you and say, thieves, you stole the land. You stole it. You say to them, it's God's land. He gave it to me. Yeah, simple questions. They don't believe in your Torah. The same way you don't buy their book, they don't buy your book. Rashi's not a moron. Rashi knows that. This is not exactly a sophisticated question. We're understanding him wrong. It's not for them. It's for you. It's for you. You want to know why God starts the Torah in Genesis? You've got to know that if people come to you and say, thieves, you're thieves, you stole the land, you say to them, you must say to them, you must believe God made this land for me. That's why. God made this land for me. This is my land. This is my land. That's why. You have to believe that. And if you don't believe it, you'll fall apart from the inside. You'll have Jews saying, why, we don't deserve to be here. I don't understand. Why are we here? And why are we treating these people this way? And why are we treating those people that way? By the way, believing it doesn't give you any right to abuse people. I don't want you to think that that's true because it's absolutely false. It's patently false. But the idea is if you do not believe that you have a right to this land, why are you here? Get out. You're a thief. You have no right. If you do not believe that God made this land for your people, why are you here? You're the Americans kicking off the Indians. You have no right to this land. It's their land. Rashi's not saying it for other people to believe. He knows they don't. Why would other people believe our book? They wouldn't. It's for you. Do you believe your book? Do we, the Jewish people around the world, believe that? Patently not. Clearly not. And that's why we're so conflicted. We're so conflicted and we have this tension and we really don't know. I mean, maybe post-67, maybe pre-1967, maybe if they'd be good enough to give us like a little shtetl and promise not to slaughter us anymore, maybe then everything would be okay. It's my land. It's mine. According to the Torah, mine. How much of it? All of it. All of it. It's all mine.
What are the borders in the Torah?
Look it up. You can Google that. Mine. No. Not exactly, but close to it. It's mine. According to the Torah, it's my land. This is not to say, wait 1 second. Yes, question. Yeah.
It's a question. If this is what the Torah says, and
Yes.
and it's a religious belief,
Yes.
then how come there are religious institutions such as schools that are zeros?
Oh, beautiful. We're going to get to that. Excellent.
I understand there's Jewish schools that don't impute science.
We're going to get to that. Yeah. When I said in the beginning, we're going to hit secular Israeli, Haredi Israeli, that's the Haredi Israeli piece. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I'm not. The same way, I didn't write it. My book is thousands of years old. My deed precedes everyone else's deed literally by thousands of years. If fairness is your issue, which by the way, truth has nothing to do with fair, as we all know, every time you stub your toe, you know that truth has nothing to do with fairness. But if you're curious about fairness, take a look at a map and tell me that it's not fair. If you're concerned with fairness, which again, I'm not concerned with fairness. I'm concerned with reality. If fairness is your issue, open up a map and look on it and tell me that it's not fair. Count the countries, count the miles, count the years in history, and tell me it's not fair. You lie. You lie. You lie to yourself. Now, it's my land. Rabbi, that's not a very practical solution. I'm not interested in practical solutions. I'm not interested in practical solutions. I'm not saying there doesn't have to be a practical solution. I'm saying that let's learn reality first. Let's learn truth first. Then make whatever practical solutions you want to make. Rabbi, that's not very politically correct. I don't care. I don't care. Tell me something. Why is it that other people aren't ashamed to get up and say the same thing? The only people who are ashamed is us. We're ashamed. It's unbelievable. Can you imagine? This is, by the way, you know how true this is? This is why there's only one nation on the planet Earth who literally has to prove they have a right to exist. Have you ever thought how ridiculous that is? It's unbelievable. Does Indonesia have a right to exist? What would right to exist? Who in the world has ever questioned any other country's right to exist? It has never happened. Look through a history book. There are enemies. I come and kill you. I don't like you. I'm going to take this from you and that from you. Who has ever said that Russia has no right to exist? What a strange assertion. Who determines someone's right to exist? They exist or they don't. And yet, Israel's right to exist is questioned all the time. All the time in the United Nations. Why? Because we don't believe we have a right to exist. We don't believe it. So neither do they. Neither do they. We have Jews rallying outside the United Nations calling for the downfall of Israel. So 1 second, if you don't believe you have a right to exist, then I certainly don't believe you have a right to exist. Can you imagine somebody walking up to Saudi Arabia and saying, excuse me, what right do you have to Mecca? What right do I have to Mecca? God gave us Mecca. What do you mean? Mecca's our holy city. It has the Kaaba. It has the temple of Allah. How dare you cast aspersions on my right to my holy land that God gave me? This is exactly what they would say. This is exactly what they would say. It's what they're supposed to say. Why would this like, can Paris belong to the French? It's exactly what they're supposed to say. This is my land. Why are you embarrassed to say it? Count the times, please, count the times that an Israeli politician, Israeli or otherwise, any Jewish politician, has walked into the United Nations and said, it's mine, all of it, because it said so thousands of years before you existed. Count the times. I'll give you a hint. None. We're so afraid of saying it. We're not afraid of the people. We're not afraid of the other people. Let's be honest. Who are we afraid of? Ourselves. Ourselves. Because there's massive vocal responsibility that comes with that statement. For example, did you know there's a very interesting and ironic differentiation between the Israeli Declaration of Independence and the American Declarations of Independence? The difference being the American Declaration of Independence involves God and the Israeli one does not. A simple oversight. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't an oversight. It refers to the rock. Rock? Why rock? You know what refers to the rock? The reason that the original Israelis who penned the Declaration of Independence left out the word God and put in the word rock is because they couldn't agree whether or not there's a God. I'm not putting God in my declaration. But you guys, you want God in your declaration, so let's compromise and say rock. And we all know what rock means. We're embarrassed. We are ashamed. We're ashamed of ourselves. So we don't say it. We don't say it to ourselves. We don't say it to our children. We don't say it in the United Nations. And we struggle. We struggle. Why do I have a right to be here? So we make all sorts of like crazy compromises like, well, you know, we need protection and we need a little land, so we're going to be over here. This is our historical land after all. So it'll be fair. I'll be here, you'll be there, and we'll have a lot of peace and roses and lemon peels for everybody. That's silly. It's for you. It's the first verse in the Torah. First one. Oh, yes, but the first verse in the Torah seems like a pretty strange place to do this. Why is it the first verse? You know why? You have a question? What's the question?
When you call the you discussing.
You the Jews.
Yes.
You the Jews.
It just seems like so obvious that it's because we're not all like-minded, and that's where the problem arises.
That is where the problem arises, exactly. We are not united. We are not united in covenant. We are not united in purpose. We are not united in vision. We are not united in belief. We are not united in identity.
So when you were in Israel, that's where you decided about that?
No. I've felt that a million times every day, but this particular thought was irking me, itching from the inside. So when it itches, you have to let go. You have to let it out. And sorry to do this to you. Yes.
Coming from former Soviet Union,
Yes.
the Jews, the only survival was depending on being soft and not just stand for you.
Right.
This is what you believe, and this is how to address it. This is if you were a stand for this, whatever,
Mhm.
talking about for
Right.
Israel at this time, we won't be not existing.
For sure. That's true. That's true. I'm not saying that we have to run around touting it all the time. What the Torah is saying is we have to believe it for ourselves. It's all about what we think about ourselves and not what anyone thinks about us. It's what we think is our story. What's our story? Doesn't mean we should go and throw the Palestinians out. Doesn't mean that. It just means this is what the land is, and this is what it is to us, and this is what it always has been, and this is why. And if you don't believe that, then why are you there? You're a thief. You're a thief. Get out.
So does that mean the people that, like we saw that live in those settlements
Mhm.
are real?
Yes.
That they do believe
100%. 100%. Now, let's understand for a moment why it's the first verse in the Torah. And then I want to deal with your question, and then we'll double back and see if we can answer this. If it's the very first verse in the Torah, if the very first verse in the Torah is coming to say that God is giving the land of Israel to the Jews, that means that the entirety of the Torah is about one thing. Do you understand? It's crazy. It's crazy. According to this idea, the entirety of the Torah, and it's a long book, is all ultimately about getting the Jews into Israel. That's what the whole darn thing is about. Where does the Torah end? At the border of the land of Israel. Moshe dies, they're about to go in. That's where the book ends. The book begins with the creation of the cosmos, and the book ends with the Jews about to enter into the land of Israel. Why? Because that's the point of the book. We'll have to understand afterwards why that would be. I'm not sure if we'll have time for it today. We may not. If not, we'll do it at our next session. But now for 1 minute, I want to take a swing at a massive failing. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, people are more than welcome to argue with me. Set me straight, please. I'm open-minded. Set me straight. I perceive a horrific and painful failure on the part of a gigantic segment of Jews. Gigantic segment of Jews. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, in Tractate Sanhedrin on page 94. It says that at the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, Hezekiah, king of Judah, the nation of Assyria, under Sennacherib, marched on the land of Israel. They marched on the land of Israel. This was the mightiest nation in the world, and they were going to eradicate Judea off the map. And at the gates of Jerusalem, they died. This is a fact. We know this historically. We know they died. If you read Paul Johnson's book, The History of the Jews, he will illustrate to you, and I've mentioned this before in other classes, that the Jews say it was angels, the historians say it was typhus. That's fine. That's irrelevant for right now. I don't care how they died. For our purposes, it doesn't matter. The Talmud tells us that Chizkiyahu could have been Mashiach. He could have been Mashiach. But you know why he wasn't? Because after God saved the Jewish people by eradicating the Assyrian army at the gates of Jerusalem, do you know what Chizkiyahu failed to do? He didn't sing Shira. He didn't sing to God. He didn't sing. So you can't be Mashiach if you don't sing. After all, everybody knows that Led Zeppelin is Mashiach. I don't understand. You're telling me that you were going to end history and it's the Messiah and everything is wonderful and I have to deal with all the world wars and the starvation and the poverty and all the horrible things that are... This all would have been taken care of if Chizkiyahu just would have found his guitar? It's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you what I think the answer is. It's super simple. What does it mean that you sing to God? It means that you recognize the miracle. You're so overcome by this vision that you look outside of your gates. It was a massive army, right? It's like you watch The Lord of the Rings. This is the goblins and all those people. They're all coming at you, and you see the orcs from the towers of Gondor, and you're like, we're all gonna die. And then God makes a miracle, and they get wiped out, and you're fine. And you're like, that was awesome. Now let's make a party. You have to sing. You have to sing to Hashem. You have to say, wow, what a miracle. What a miracle this is. You have to recognize it. It's not that he failed to sing. La la la. He failed to recognize it. He didn't recognize it. He didn't make it obvious that it was a miracle. He didn't sing with praise and joy. Because of that, history continues in all its decrepit party. You'll pardon me for saying so. You don't like Israel because the government is secular? You don't have to like the government. You don't like Israel because there are buses on Saturday? You don't like Israel because they conscript Jews into an army which is semi-secular? You don't like Israel because A, B, C, D, E, the list of things that you don't, the reasons that you don't celebrate Israeli Independence Day is longer than the tablecloth. You have all these excellent reasons, wonderful reasons why you don't want to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut and why you don't want to say Hallel on Yom HaAtzmaut. I'm fine. I don't care if you say Hallel or not. I couldn't care less if you say Hallel or not. Do your thing. Do your thing. If you don't have your own day for it, if you don't recognize the miracle, you're spitting on it. You're not singing Shira. God gave it to you. Do you understand the miracle? You live there, but you don't understand the miracle because it's just reality. I get up in the morning and I pack my lunchbox and I go to school. And then I come home and I play Xbox and I go back to sleep. So you could do this in Jerusalem. You could do it in Bangladesh. You could do it in Miami. It's the biggest miracle the world has ever seen in modern times. It's an impossible miracle that the Jews come back. It's an impossible miracle. If you don't believe me that it's an impossible miracle, read Jewish literature from the past 2,000 years. Interview any Jew. Take your time machine and go interview any Jew, anywhere, any geography, any financial situation in the past 2,000 years. Throw a dartboard at a timeline and go there, and throw a dartboard at a map and go to that place and interview all the Jews and say to them, oh, guess what? The Jews have Israel. They would laugh and cry. Laugh because you're crazy and cry because it's not true. You're sitting there. You're in the land. Sing. Sing. Recognize and appreciate what you have, what you've experienced, this unbelievable miracle. Recognize it. You don't like the government? Vote. Vote. Change things. That's fine. Recognize. Appreciate. Love. And by the way, one thing that I will tell you, and this is true, we all know this is true, all the people that claim not to like Israel, if it fell tomorrow, you'd be devastated. You'd be devastated. You would cry. You would rip your clothes. You would sit on the floor and cry. You would sit shiva on it. Every person who won't look at an Israeli flag, they'd sit shiva on it if it fell tomorrow. We all know that. Everybody knows that. Who are you fooling? It's the truth. It's the truth. You want to celebrate a different way? Heaven forbid with the Zionists. Celebrate a different way. Celebrate a different way. You don't celebrate at all? Shame on you.
What about the Haredi who don't believe until the time of Mashiach there shouldn't be a state? That's more than not agreeing with it, but that's an ideological idea.
Yes, yes.
First of all, where does that come from and why?
Where does Nituri Karta from? Without getting too much into it, it comes from a Gemara which says that the Jews promised Yosef, lo la'alot b'choma, not to take Israel by force. If you believe that Israel should not be taken at all until this time of Messiah, which, by the way, personally, I think that they have no idea what the Mashiach is in the first place, but you recognize that you're talking about 20,000 people. Nituri Karta is a tiny, tiny sect of Jews.
So all those,
it's teeny tiny.
All those black hat people, Shattering, are not?
No, they're not Nituri Karta. No. 99% of them are not. It's literally a tiny, tiny group. Like you said, they have ideological issues. So again, we can get into that with them and decide what is and what is not.
But not
Yeah.
only the Haredi, but the Orthodox, they don't pray for the state of Israel. Why?
For the same reason. People who don't pray for the state of Israel they don't support the state of Israel because it is secular. So if you're religious and you don't want to uphold a secular state of Israel, that's fine. You can go and thank God for giving you this miracle in a different way. You can remove all of the language of the government affairs and politics. Take that out of your prayer and write your own prayer. Or say an old prayer, say a Hallel, say whatever you want. Sing a song. Sing a song. You don't like the flag? Make your own flag. But if you fail in any way, shape, or form to sing to God for giving you this miracle, you are missing the boat. You're spitting on it. You're spitting on a miracle that would have sent your great-grandparents into fits of ecstasy. They would have fallen down and kissed the ground in joy. They wouldn't have been able to speak. We take a credit card and we fly, we have a really, really good time, then we can go back and we can be very, very happy not being Zionists. And people live there. Living there, we can do this. It's unbelievable. So, to wrap up this thought, if you think that the reason that we deserve Israel is because Jews need a homeland to protect them, please move to Uganda. Move to Uganda. If you think that Jews have a right to be there because they have the mightiest army, woe is to you when you don't have the mightiest army. Bye-bye, you lost. You don't have the mightiest army anymore. If you believe that God gave you this land, God gave you this land, then it's your land. Then it's your land. Other political realities, sure. You have to deal with them. Yeah, you got to deal with them. That's reality. We're not ready yet. It's not perfect yet. But you have to know. Doesn't mean I won't negotiate with you. Maybe I will negotiate with you. But I want you to understand that in my mind, this is 100% mine, and here's why. You want to know the funny, dirty little secret. This is the greatest secret in the world. They agree with you. They agree with you. It's literally hysterical if you read history. They agree with you. The entirety of the Muslim world, according to their faith, believes that it's yours. They believe it. But you don't. You don't believe it. Separate it. I'm sorry, celebrate it. Celebrate it. It's amazing that we have it. And again, if it's not God, pre-1967, post-1967, you're still a thief. You're a bigger thief or you're a smaller thief. It all goes back to what you believe about yourselves and what you're supposed to be doing there. That's what it comes down to. I'll take some questions now. Yeah.
On the secular side, it's
Yes.
all predicated on the idea that there is a God. Because secular Jews don't believe. I mean, a lot
Right.
of Jews don't believe God, so you
Yes.
can't even take the next step. So if there's
Correct.
no God,
Correct.
then there's no argument.
Correct.
There's nothing to celebrate.
Correct. That's my point. My point is if you don't believe in God, get out. It's not your land.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's what Jake Street is saying.
No, that's not what J Street's saying. J Street is saying we deserve something and they deserve something, so we're going to take pre-1967 borders and give them Gaza and the West Bank.
Because they're there already, not because God gave it, because they just happen to be there already.
That's the point, but we should leave. According to J Street, we should
Right,
leave.
Because they don't believe that God, or
Okay, so we should leave. So we have no
How-
right to this.
So
We
how do
have
you
no right to
argue
it.
with somebody who doesn't believe in God? There's no argument.
I'm not saying you should argue. I'm saying we need to be consistent. We have to be consistent. If you believe that this land has nothing to do with holiness, has nothing to do with God, and it belonged to Arabs, then it's their land. Please get out of it. Vacate their land. You are a thief. You are a thief. You have no right to this land. Get out. If you believe that it is ours because God gave it to us, then all of this land belongs to us. The fact there are other people there, okay, that's a reality, but it doesn't change the truth. The truth, and it should be said, is that God gave me this land. And I'm proud of my land.
What I don't understand, why can't the argument be, we won it in a war? Like, how many lands are enough because God gave you the land? Win the land in a war, that's not enough?
Well, that's enough the same way that Putin can invade the Ukraine and take Crimea and say, I won, it's mine. Or Saddam Hussein can invade Iraq and say, I won it, it's mine.
Still arguing the way it came to, I don't understand.
That's a numbers question. But at the end of the day, we say, oh, we conquered it, so it's ours. So it's fair game. Anyone who conquers anyone, it's theirs. Do we believe that?
That's how the world works.
It may, but that doesn't mean that it's a true thing or a fair thing or a just thing. The fact that the world works with all sorts of injustices, the fact that the Americans slaughtered all of the Native Americans, right, the Europeans. The European colonizers came, they slaughtered all the Native Americans, they took their land, they gave them a few beads in a casino, and then say, oh, okay, it's ours now, but you guys can have your little autonomous rule in this little reservation that we allot to you. Oh, how generous of us. How generous of us. What's the difference?
It might not be the right way, but
Right.
no one dwells on that.
I do. I dwell on it. Justice is important to me. Justice is important. We have to be just. We do. We should be. We must be. We must be.
So what's your suggestion to do for the Native Americans in here in America?
I don't have a suggestion for that. Because again, politics don't interest me that much. I care a lot about what is. You know, what people want to do with what is, that's up to them. I don't care. And also, honestly, I don't know. I don't have solutions for that.
You're saying, what I'm confused about, if the Jews don't believe it was given by God,
Mhm.
so it's unjust that we're there,
Yeah.
then we really are thieves and we should leave?
We should leave 100%, move to Brooklyn.
So the Americans should leave because we took it from the Native Americans?
Well, the Native Americans aren't telling the Americans to leave, but essentially, yeah, 100%.
So when you said that they were right, the students on campus, it's because they don't believe
Exactly, they don't believe. So they say, I don't understand. Why am I occupying their space? How much is fair? And they say, oh, they all come back to fairness. So people arbitrarily flip a coin about fairness and they say, fair is pre-1967 borders. That is so incredibly arbitrary. Why is fair pre-1967? Why? Why? It's so incredibly arbitrary. That's why Jews are so confused. They're so confused. They don't understand. They don't understand why we need to be there.
What about secular Israelis?
Same thing.
I mean,
Same thing.
They don't understand why they have to be there anymore.
Many don't. Many don't.
So one of the things we saw on the trip was, one of our trips was to the police academy in Israel. And they were saying how they take every group in the police academy
Right.
to Treblinka
Right.
to see what happened there and where it came from.
Right.
Because most of Israelis are Druze and Iraq have no idea why they're there. I mean, they're not there because God said it. They're there to protect it.
Exactly.
What they're protecting, but they said that they're so disconnected in their day-to-day life
Right.
that they're not even connected to the Holocaust,
Right.
let alone connected to God.
But that's true. But the Holocaust has nothing to do with the state of Israel. I know that we all make it like it does. The Holocaust has nothing whatsoever to do with my claim on the land of Israel. It doesn't. You're saying, oh, they keep killing us, give them a land. Give them a land in Uganda where it's not taken from anybody who cares. Make a deal with the Arabs. Make a great deal with them. Say, give us some land over there in Saudi Arabia. We won't bother you. You won't bother us. Take your startup high-tech nation. What, the computers don't work in Saudi Arabia? You'll put up a few routers. What's the problem? Why do you need to be here? You can come and visit. Give the land to the Egyptians or to the Jordanians or to the Syrians. Iran all of a sudden won't even need a nuclear bomb. They won't even need a nuclear bomb. You get rid of the Iranian problem. You get rid of the Russian problem. Everybody's fighting over you. It's so funny. Go back to the original thing. It is like literally hysterical. I mean, it is hilarious. We said the Jews with their elephant in the room. The Jews say that the first verse of the Torah is claiming that everyone is going to be obsessed with you in Israel. How foolish is that? Is it really foolish? Have you looked at the United Nations agenda items? Have you looked at the agenda items? Don't believe me? Google it. Google it. Any General Assembly meeting. Go. Look, and tell me they're not obsessed with you in Israel. Tell me that. Tell me that it's not true. I'm not saying they should be, they shouldn't be, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, they're right, they're wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm saying tell me it's not true. Tell me it's not true that all of the votes have to do with this. Look me in the face with a straight face and tell me that it's false. Tell me that I'm lying. Hit print. It's obvious.
Does it all come back to education in terms of educating what the Torah says to people?
Of course.
So what's the solution then?
Of course it's education. Of course it's education. We have to know who we are and what we are. We have to know. We have to be as proud to be what we are as everyone else is to be who they are. And they should be very proud with who they are. The Japanese should be very, very proud of Japan and all that she has accomplished in the Japanese people. And by the way, they believe that their land was also given to them by God. And it was. We also believe that it was. We believe that God gave the Arabian lands to the sons of Ishmael. It says it in the Torah. Those are their lands. We believe that Esau got his land. We believe that. We agree with them. The problem is we don't believe it about ourselves. Yeah.
Well, there are certainly plenty of secular Israelis, Zionistic
Yes.
Israelis that are proud.
Very.
And are holding, whether,
Sure.
you know, with that education or not.
Sure.
So
Sure.
of course.
They are. They're very proud. They're very proud. And while they were being shot at, the pride translated. Because it was, we're being killed, we're coming here, we're making it on our own, we're protecting ourselves. Then they flourished, and they became wealthy and powerful, and their grandchildren are asking, why are we abusing people? Why are we here? And it's a good question. Because if the issue is one of protection, let's go there. We don't need to be here.
But the Israeli army does it right, because when they do the ceremony, the swearing ceremony,
Mhm.
they still give them their gun,
Yeah.
and their Tanakh.
100%.
They're not, I mean, it's not just a gun.
Right.
It's still tied back to the Torah.
Yeah, symbolically it is. But that's, unfortunately, first of all, I love the fact that they do that. And it's very meaningful to me that they do that. But if you don't read it, then it's like going to a hotel room and you have the Book of Mormon in the front drawer.
No,
Right.
but they also do Teulim to
biblical sites
Yeah.
because it's history.
Throughout their-
It's history.
No, and some believe.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, okay.
Many
we
do.
know, but some
Many do.
We do. The people, I mean,
Yeah.
some people believe.
Sure we do. Many of us believe, but we're conflicted. As a nation, we're conflicted. And we have to stop being conflicted.
If it's not, your messages, if it's not passed down from that
Yeah.
grandkids.
If it's not then, if it's not promised to us from God, why are we there?
Can we start at home? Because we have a college readiness week for our seniors, so they need to hear this speech so that they can convey it when they're on college campuses.
I agree. I could not agree more.